And welcome to Front Row the Podcast. We're very excited to have you here. But before we get going, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review if you got value from this week's episode. We can't wait to share with you all the industry peers, all the industry experts, all around professional speaking. And we are super excited to welcome you to this week's episodes. Get your notepad ready, get your action steps lined up, and let's tune in to this week's episode. Welcome to Front Row the Podcast. I am really excited because this is part of the Winners Series. And so what we're doing over the next few interviews and podcasts, I get to interview the winners of Speaker Awards. I get to touch base with them. I get to find out how their life has transformed and changed and evolved and grown since being one of the Speaker Awards winner. And today I'm joined with the one and only Beth Sherman. Thanks for being here, Beth. How are you? That's okay.
I'm well.
You were amazing because I was like, sent the message out and then you're like, well, I'm free today. And I was like, well, I don't have a life. I don't have anything going on. So I'm going to jump, not to insinuate you don't, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to jump on and let's do this because let's get this done. So thank you for being so flexible and so willing to do it within like 24 hours of a notification. Is it true that you don't have?
Well, you know, speakers, we hate
to talk about yourself.
to talk about ourselves. You know, speakers, we hate to talk about ourselves.
I find that too. I find that running the Speaker Awards, that, you know, speakers are just so shy. They just don't want to come forwards at all. So thanks again. So let's dive into your journey to the awards, because this is the winner series, and then what we're going to do is unpack you a little bit more and find out about you, Beth, you know, who you are, what you do. But tell us your journey to the Speaker. So you won Best Showreel in 2024, and that's an interesting story in itself. But let's dial back before the winning moment. Let's dial back to that moment where you thought about entering the Speaker Awards. Talk us through that moment when you're like, oh, shall I do this? Shall I not? Shall I stay? Shall I go? You know, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, I have not been speaking in this context for all that long. So around the time I was doing or considering doing that application, I was maybe a year, 18 months in, something like that. And actually, the woman who is now your awards ambassador, Maria Franzoni, I don't know if she was then, but I was talking to her and she said, look, even I didn't think I had much of a chance of placing, but she said the exercise of doing the application is really helpful because it makes you distill down what you do into a form that is, it really makes you take a deep look at yourself and how you present yourself, how you market yourself, and how you articulate what it is you do. And you know, the price was not crazy. So
you mean the entering fee?
I entered in.
Yes, okay.
Correct, yes. The price of failure would have been
devastating, right? But and so tell me, was there skeptic inside you going, well, is this just another, like one of those, and be honest, because I want people to really get a feel for the journey of going through the awards. Was there a skeptic within you? I
wouldn't say it was a skeptic, It's just reality. And also I worked in Hollywood for a long time. There's every year there's award season and there's tons and tons of awards. And so I vote for them. I'm in 2 unions, so I vote for awards in actually 3 categories. So 2 unions and a professional organization. So I also know things from the other side in the sense of it is nice to be nominated. It's a cliche, but it's true. It's flattering. I also know that the work doesn't change. The work does not. It's external validation. So the work that you're doing it can be enhanced, and your credibility and your visibility can be enhanced, but also the world doesn't end if you don't win. So with that in mind, I thought, why not? Well,
yes,
and it'll be a nice evening.
I think it's very important to highlight the world does not end. In most cases, even if you don't get that speaking gig you want, or you don't get that, the world doesn't end. The world will keep ticking over. So I'm glad you took that approach, and it wasn't so catastrophic should you not been shortlisted. I think what's really interesting, having known a little bit of your story to get to the podium, I believe what's fascinating is you entered the showreel category last year, 2024. And there's quite an interesting story about you and your editing, because you trumped, with the greatest respect, professional editors. So tell us about your journey of editing your showreel, because I love this story, because I still have pictures of you. I'll tell you about those in a minute, but tell the story first.
Wait, what pictures do you have of me,
I can
Elliot?
confirm nor deny such
what kind of
accusations.
podcast is this?
As in my mind, a picture in my mind. But once you tell the story, I will disclose the picture in my mind that I have of you.
Well, here was my thought. So again,
Yes.
I worked in television for 30 years. I worked in late night, and I both wrote and produced comedy, and spent a lot of my career sitting next to an editor. And often one of the things that I had to do was create a rough cut of something. So I am used to going, not just putting things together that have impact, but I'm used to sort of, let me figure out the building blocks so that when I sit with someone who has limited time, I have identified the building blocks of things that will have impact and connection. In my case, it was always comedy. So I have basic editing skills, very, very basic, like iMovie level. But I have a pretty good eye. So at the time, the content that I was working with, I hadn't been doing it that long. It was a lot of me speaking to groups in badly lit rooms, fluorescent lit rooms. It was not arena tours. So Wembley is Thursday. So so my thought process for a showreel, it was my first showreel, was I will be very happy in the future to invest in what this costs to be worthwhile. Not yet. This is video I've shot on my phone. So I sat down to cut it together myself. So my showreel was cut by me on iMovie in my pajamas on my laptop with 30 years of experience of how do you tell I say how do you tell a joke, but by that I mean how do you set something up and then pay it off. So it's not just about humor, it's about impact. How do you communicate things and get, which goes into what I do, but how can you communicate, if I want to persuade people to take action, which is listening, often it could be buying something, but if I want to persuade people to take action, I have to build trust, and the best way to build trust is by getting people to feel emotion. So that's how I approached it. I entered it. So content-wise, I would say the beats of it were good, the bones of it were good, but the editing, I mean, it's held together with duct tape and safety pins and unicorn tears. But in the category, so then I was flabbergasted to be nominated, and the other showreels in the category that then I could then watch. Again, this is me. It's 2 minutes of me in fluorescent lit rooms. The other entrants were people who had climbed Everest, and there's footage of them crossing ice bridges, and winning Olympic medals, literally in motion, winning Olympic medals, and these are people who are peers and friends and colleagues. So the fact that I was even shortlisted against those made me feel very good that I understood how to be authentic on screen. And it made a good point that what really lands with people isn't always bells and whistles. It's authenticity, and it's messaging, and is this useful to someone, and does it make them feel something? And
when I say the image, because I remember you talked about doing it in your pajamas, and so I had images of you in pajamas, actual pajamas, like, I don't know, Frozen pajamas. Yeah, like actual
choo-choo train.
It's just your tracksuits, right? Those are your pajamas. So I was very devastated when you broke it to me that you didn't actually do in pajamas. I was very disappointed, I must say.
Sometimes I have to answer the door. I work at home, but sometimes I have to answer the door. So yeah, the choo-choo trains or the fire trucks or the frozen jammies, or that, whatever lady clothing you're picturing me in. I'm not going to answer the door for the Amazon guy in that. So it's a lot of comfortable fleece.
It just made me laugh when you said that. I was like, I guess because I have kids, right? So immediately when I see pajamas, I see like choo-choo trains or Santa, which is what they are now. You know, and so it just, of course it wouldn't been. Had I stopped and actually thought about it rationally, of course you don't wear choo-choo train pajamas. Maybe you do, I don't know. Anyway, we're not going to talk about pajamas for much longer is the good news. And so just, I want to pick that moment because, you know, a lot of people talk about being shortlisted, being an honor, and then winning, being an honor. And I want for those who maybe never heard of the awards before, like, what does that actually, because a lot of people go, yeah, the people just say that. Like, for you, you duct tape together a very good showreel. And I always talk about you as someone, when I show your showreel, I talk about being resourceful. It's not always about the footage, it's about how resourceful you are around it. So I think you're an exceptional example, considering you're so one, right? But for the people like, oh, it's just an honor to be shortlisted, it's an honor to win. Talk us through that, because I think some people feel that's just a line. Like, people just say that. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what it really feels like for you. You were shortlisted and then you won. And as you said, you beat some serious competition in that category.
Well, for my neighbors, it felt loud because I was sitting watching the video, the webinar where they were announced, and I let out a yell that they usually don't hear from me during the day or ever.
Yes.
That sounded strange. Yeah. It was a whoop of victory. And it made me see myself in the context of those other nominees. It made me, you know, I guess
Okay.
a word is imposter syndrome. I know what I do. I know I'm very good at what I do. But I was earlier in my journey, and to see myself measured, that was the win. To see myself in that company was it was humbling, and it gave me a little confidence. I was on the right track. Yeah, I mean, that was the good feeling. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't the winning. It was, a lot of people have entered. This is the short list, and the people on this short list are who
I think
want
it's important to
be.
caveat that with whoever didn't shortlist. It's just a shot in time, right? It doesn't suddenly devalidate. It doesn't mean they're not good. It just means the eyeballs they had on that at that time, they had, and we worked with very strict criteria, which is all very transparent on our websites. It just meant at that time, you didn't make the grade. That's it. It doesn't suddenly devalidate those who didn't, right? I think that's important. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think
sometimes
that
it needs
goes
to be
without
said.
saying, but we'll both
Yeah.
trip over
I think
ourselves
sometimes it
saying
needs to be reminded, because often we talk about people backing themselves and people just going through the process, as you talked about, has helped in itself, and then getting shortlisted and then winning is a bonus. So let's pause there for a second, because you talked a lot about Hollywood and you've been 30 years. So tell us a little bit about that, because you bring 30 years in your pajamas to the editing. Tell us a little bit about your 30 years experience, because that's quite fascinating in itself, in a nutshell.
the glamour of Hollywood. I spent 30 years as a comedy writer and a producer, and in television. Once I knew that it was a job to be in a writer's room on a TV show, it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I grew up loving humor. I grew up listening to comedy albums. You can see some of them behind me if you're looking at the video. Some of the ones that were really really meaningful to me as a kid, and I could, if you want, I can recite them word for word. Hardly anyone asks, but I grew up on the East Coast of the U.S. I grew up in Philadelphia, nowhere near show business, nowhere near entertainment, but there was something about stand-up comedy that made sense to me. It's if there's a kind of music you like, and it just makes you feel something, and the world makes sense when you hear it. I loved the craft of it. I did not have the confidence, guts, or probably role models to go up and try it myself. That never really felt like a possibility. I couldn't picture it. This is looking back on it. But I saw a TV show when I was 14 or 15, and they showed the writer's room of a sitcom that I really liked. And this was 10 guys in a room, mostly guys, around a conference table, and their whole job was, in the course of a week, one person wrote the draft of the script, and then the rest of them spent the week going through that script line by line to make it funnier and more engaging. And not just funnier and more engaging, but funnier and more engaging in the voice of that character. So really not just funny, but truthfully funny. And my head exploded. This was a job. That was their job. They got paid money to get up, shower, get dressed, go sit in a room with other funny people and one-up them.
Sounds dreamy.
Which was a dream. And I went to university, which didn't really have much. It was a box I had to check for my parents, and then moved, and that was in Boston, so not near entertainment, but I moved to LA, and I started as a gopher.
Is that a runner?
Is that getting coffee,
okay.
It's a runner. Yeah, it's called gopher because it's go for this, go for that. It's very technical. Yeah, a run for this, run for that. Yeah, exactly. And getting coffee and doing a lot of copying of scripts and driving scripts around because it was pre-internet and kind of pre-fax-ish. And I started as a production assistant, which is the official term. And then if you stick around, you can get into that writer's room to be the one who takes notes. This is before AI. And that would be the writer's assistant. And then all this time you're writing and hoping to get the opportunity to sort of sit on the other end of the table. And I finally got that opportunity. It actually, in the grand scheme, took about
quick,
3 years, 2 or 3
years. To find themselves
in
the writing room. I guess that's also a homage to your writing, because you have to be funny and write good stuff to even get a seat at the table. So clearly you had a talent for it. You had an eye, an ear for it. That must have helped. Well, you clearly will.
I hope so. I hope so. And also, it's interesting sort of working your way up, though, paying dues. It also shows you a lot of things that help later on. I mean, all throughout your career in any business, which is be easy to work with, be able to take no for an answer, know which battles to fight, and having the opportunity to watch that from the sidelines and watch it go well and watch it not go well for people was also very, very valuable. So by the time yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, by the time I had the opportunity, I had some of those lessons baked in. I made tons of mistakes, but that did help. And the nature of those shows, I worked on a lot of shows that they would be in production for a little while, and then the season, they would be out of production, or they would, and then they would either come back or they wouldn't. So I worked on a lot of shows in a relatively short period of time because it's freelance. And then eventually I ended up on shows where I stayed a bit longer, but I was on I wrote for Letterman, I wrote for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno for 5 years, I was at Ellen for 3 years, I've written for lots of award shows, including the Screen Actors Guild Awards, I think 3 times, and the Oscars twice, did that a couple of times. So the skill, the weird superpower with all of that is not just being funny, but being funny in someone else's voice, and also understanding what builds trust and rapport, what makes people laugh, what creates positive emotion. So I've sucked all the fun out of comedy. But during that time, I also, once I'd had a couple paid writing jobs, and a lot of the other writers in the writer's room were stand-up comics currently, or stand-up comics who wanted a steady job. They didn't want to be on the road all the time. So they encouraged me, well, if you want to do stand-up, go do stand-up. So I went and did stand-up, no class, no anything. You just go and do it. Learn by doing, and did that, fell in love with it, and did that very steadily, nights and weekends, with the day job being comedy and the night job being comedy, but did it nights and weekends for 15 years. And whenever the shows were on break, summer break, or a week-long hiatus, I would do the road. So I would do Vegas Ohio,
to Ohio. What a difference.
Wherever.
I mean, could you, big,
glamorous
to cowboy country.
Yeah. Let me tell you that Vegas behind the scenes, not so glamorous. Eating in the employee
not.
cafeteria at Harrah's is less glamorous than it seems. But having your picture taken in front with your name on the marquee and your parents, or the sign, I think the marquee means something different in the UK, but having your name, your picture taken with your parents
cool, right?
while your name's on the
cool.
sign.
Wow, what an experience.
Cool.
Maybe we should get you to write the awards next year. You know, it's our 5-year party. You know, it's a 5-year anniversary. So maybe we'll pull in an Oscar writing comedian, speaker, showreel winner. But that's another conversation. So that's really so. Now you've got all this experience. So you've done all this stuff, and then here you are. You've been shortlisted, and then comes the day that you show up for the gala, and we all sit down at the table, and you know. I guess, was it different doing it for yourself versus for someone else? And then there's the moment, of course, where you're announced as a winner. So take us through that moment.
Yeah, and I've won a fair amount of awards in entertainment, but those were always as part of a team. So there was something, and it's something I like about speaking too, is that it's lovely to be part of a team. Also nice to get the credit directly. So the night of the awards, to hear my name, I mean, it's the cliche of you like me, you really like me, but I'm in. But there was a wonderful sense of community because I was relatively new to the UK. I mean, anyone listening to this can hear my accent, and I'm not
from
local.
Yorkshire.
But I was relatively new to that.
No, now then, that's
how's that?
Scouser. But anyway, we'll keep stay on.
Stay on topic. Stay on topic. So the name is called, and it's a rush. It's wonderful. And what was really nice is I knew a lot of the people in the room, even though it hadn't been very long. I knew a lot of people in the room, and interestingly, I was at the awards the previous year as a guest of Jazanpur Far, who I did not know, heard her on Maria's podcast, reached out to Jazz just on LinkedIn and said, "You're hilarious, and I love the way you use humor to balance what is just heart-breaking adversity and some really heartbreaking stories in her past and what she talks about." And I told her how much I love how she uses humor to balance that and make it land, because it could just be unrelentingly grim, and it's not. It makes you cry with genuine tears of laughter. So she said, "Oh, you're coming to the awards." I said, "What are the awards?" She said, "I have a table, you have a ticket." So I went, and I knew one person the year before. A year later, I knew quite a few people in the room, and when my name was called, it was more than just my wife cheering, which felt really good. It was a community, and it's also wonderful to just be at the day and be at the evening and connect.
And how do you? I find sometimes, because I've been on awards, I've had a similar journey when I've entered awards myself. I entered the Business Book Awards years ago, and I got nowhere, and I'm feeling angry and resentful. I'm like, oh, it's all clicky. I'm not in with the like all these things went on in my head. You can imagine I threw the toys out the pram. And then the next year I was like, well, just write a better book. So then I wrote a better book, which is a shorter book and more of illustrations, less writing. That got shortlisted for the Business Book Awards. I didn't win. And I found that sitting there anticipating, waiting for my name to be called out. But generally when my name wasn't, and whoever won, I was generally celebrating their successes. And I didn't feel a lot of cattiness. And I know sometimes awards can have that cattiness. But you don't find that with the Speaker Awards, from what I understand. I've never won an award there. I just run the thing. I find that people... do you find people generally are celebrating, or do you I don't know, because I'm not experienced from a winner side.
Yeah, we're all nice to
That's
you.
What
you
you
run
think.
the
No
thing.
one's nice to me, because I run the thing.
Well, fair enough. I have found it to be an incredibly welcoming group, and I think there's a few things behind it. One, you are very intentionally creating that spirit and being very clear about how things are judged, and you're very clear about what it means and what it doesn't mean to be shortlisted and to win, and it's very open, and that's very carefully thought through and beautifully thought through by you all as people who run the awards. And the other side of that is it feels like the speaker community, because most people who speak are not just speakers, they are experts who speak, which means that they have other lives. So they have become very good at something, and they have reached a particular point in their career, which usually means they're pretty good at it. And they've got some maturity in their career before they turn to speaking as the main thing that they do. And that maturity makes them very interesting people. It also makes them, it gives them a very unique perspective on this other part of their job. That they understand. These are people who often were leaders in their fields, and so they bring that into their speaker persona. They plus the fact that it's just speaking's lonely. It's you're a solo entrepreneur, just in every sense. You're marketing yourself, you're on the road alone, you're speaking alone, you're on stage alone. And I always found this with comedians too, that the only people who understand what it's like to stand there with a microphone and have to command the attention of a room are the people who have had to stand there with a microphone and command the attention to the room. Yeah, and we do it because we love it, both in stand-up and in speaking. But it's a pretty self-selecting group, and there aren't a lot of people who understand it. So to find yourself in a room full of people who understand it is a special thing. And I always found that with stand-up too. That's why we would hang out at the bar or whatever. I mean, it becomes conversations till 3 a.m, and you're not talking about, hey, what is this like? But you have this common love and common experience and common
connection.
Isolation, connection that is a result of the isolation.
That's so
of
true.
The nature of the
and
gig.
So for you making the transition from stand-up to speaking, I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but it's very different. How did you find that? And then to becoming an award winner. But how did you find that transition? Were you just like, oh, it's just another tool in my toolbox? Or did you find it hard, different? Like, talk us through that.
Definitely a lot of growing pains. So this came out of, I had my career in stand-up, and in really, I mean, the money maker was always writing comedy. And throughout my career, I've worked with people in business. A lot of leaders would come to me to get help, to me and to people like me, to get help when they had high stakes campaigns, talks, things like that. I mean, there's a long history of Hollywood, of business coming to Hollywood when they need things that have emotional weight, whatever that emotion is. So I had a lot of one-to-one business clients, and I found myself explaining to these clients quite often, this is going to get you a better reaction. This is why we're adding this story, and asking them questions. But what happened after that? This is trying to dig out these bits and pieces that really made them human, that would also make people feel things and making them relatable. And I didn't realize how intentionally I was doing it, but I loved it, and I thought about teaching. And then that sort of led to me thinking about speaking, and I got in touch with Maria Franzoni and explained my skill set and what I loved sharing, and asked, would that be a thing? Would there be a market for it? And she said yes, and sent me to the Professional Speaking Association, and I had a bit more context. I started learning about speaking, because also no one sent it. I didn't work in corporate. I worked in entertainment. So there was no yearly conference where people sent in a speaker. I'd never even really seen it done. In my mind, it was Tony
Very
Robbins.
different.
That was it. So I couldn't picture. Very different. So I knew what stand-up was, and there are comedians who are great storytellers. And the difference between American stand-up and British stand-up. In British stand-up, there's more, like the Fringe Festival, there's more of it leans a little more towards storytelling, where it's stand-up that sort of has a message, basically. There's a box that they're ticking, as opposed to American stand-up, where we're here to have a good time, and there's a through line, but it's not as a direct through line. So in my mind, that Edinburgh model was what I still is. It's what I'm trying to achieve. I want as many laughs as stand-up, meat on the bone. with messaging and things that are useful that people can take away. And
good.
I'm getting closer to it. Part of it is figuring out what people want to hear, but that's
Okay.
that's what it's been.
Yes,
Is
no,
any
I think it
answer
has.
to the
It-
question?
no,
Because I feel
I
like
think
you
it's
asked
very
me
open
5 minutes ago.
answer to the question, because you're talking about actually the step to transition and develop your unique style as a professional speaker now, which you've established and you keep growing into. And so what I really love is you're saying, look, I'm taking these bits and these bits and I'm putting them together to create this super me as a speaker, which is really funny and serious, which is what you were saying. So no, I think it's a perfect answer. And I think that's a really good journey because, like you said, a lot of people move into speaking. I don't know many people that graduate from university go, I want to be a professional speaker. It doesn't normally, I'm not saying that never happens, very rarely happens. Although professional speakers are becoming younger and younger. I think what's really important to understand is the transition, or adding that it needs investment, it needs time, it needs energy, it needs focus. And of course you said finding what people want to hear, but it's also what people will book you for, right? People want to hear you, fine, but actually what will people book and pay you for? So that's another kind of layer to that. How have you found that kind of transition where you go, oh, I want to get paid as a speaker. I need to have something that's worth paying for. How did you find that?
Yeah, that's definitely a motivator. That's to grow quickly. First, it's can I do this? What do I talk about? Then it's okay, that's great. But I enjoy entertaining people. But exactly, you don't get booked for these big conferences just to entertain people. It's a work in progress. And to be fair, a lot of the people I know who have been speaking and are very
Always.
successful, for them it is still a work in progress. But what I find, the overall thing that I find lands best, and the skill that I have is how do you build trust and rapport quickly? And that's because that's what we do as comedians, right? We have to, from the second we walk on stage, usually before, but if we don't connect pretty much immediately with our audiences, nothing else we do works. And it's so important that failing to do it isn't called failing, it's called dying.
Wow.
This is literally called dying on stage. So from the second they even see us walking on stage, we have to connect quickly, engage fully, and leave them wanting more, which is a skill that people need, not just in performance, but you need it in leadership. You need to be able to, it's persuasion, really. It's keeping people's attention and engagement. Engagement, you read any of the studies now, I'm blanking on the name of the big study, there's an email in my inbox from it.
Those people, yeah, that's the official term. Those people who did that.
Those people. No, we can't say those people.
Really
that has a
bad?
whole
Oops,
other
scrap that.
connotation.
Oh, okay. Whew.
No, not terrible. It depends how you say it. The it starts with a G.
Google?
Come on, brain.
G-force.
Nope, it's not
G7?
coming. No.
No? Okay.
But that engagement is a huge problem, is a huge issue in the workplace. So yes, I think my long meandering answer is it seems to be connection and engagement is the thing that I know they're skills that I have as a comedian and a comedy writer, and showing people how to connect and engage not just their audience but their team. And in all sorts of
that sounds really
purposes.
good. And of course you have seconds, right? I think we're so distracted. Even when people are showing up to talks and to conferences, they're so distracted. There's so many things occupying our brains now that to grab them quickly, effectively, and get that warm feeling that you want to hear someone, I think that's very much needed. And I hope obviously there'll be how people get in touch with you as well. I think that's so important. I can think of so many speakers that could do with that, just to open, right? Because the moment, like you say, if you open a talk right, you keep people's attention. But if you don't open it right, they're already sitting back, even if it's mentally, they're already thinking, oh, I could check my WhatsApp, I could check my emails. There's so many things I could be doing. And that must be the worst, like you say, dying. I don't think they call it dying on stage, but I guess as a comedian, that's dying on stage, right?
Yeah, it's dying on stage. It's when people check out, and there are so many opportunities for people simply to check out. And the further away they get, the harder it is to bring them back in. We are persuading people to take action. If you're in marketing or sales or speaking, you are persuading people to take action. And as speakers, the action we need people to take could be booking us again or buying our product or working with us as a consultant. But it could be as small as persuading them to take the action of continuing to listen to us for another 30 seconds and another 30 seconds. Because if they are not fully engaged, then you're less memorable, your content's less memorable, and then
right. And
what's
people
the
always
point?
remember the way you made them feel far more than what you said, right?
Yeah, the great Maya Angelou quote. Yeah, exactly. It's how you made them feel, and in anything, exactly, and that's for speakers nurturing an audience or a leader making their team feel seen and heard and understood. That's the thing. And humor, in talking about positioning, I spend a lot of time talking about humor, and people kind of know me as, oh, it's humor, and she shows speakers how to be funny, which I love doing. But it's been the interesting thing to navigate now is trying to explain to people that it's a broader skill. It's a skill that is, I'm getting a lot of traction in sales and marketing because those are people who have to build trust and rapport quickly. It's not just about making people laugh. It's about creating connection with people so that they choose you over the other guy or they choose you over
definitely.
AI.
It sounds like a natural progression. So now we're going to zoom out a bit from just the awards and things like that, and we're doing that already. So we're coming to our kitchen table section, right? So I don't know about you, and I think this is perfectly links onto what we're starting to talk about. In our household, as much as I try and tell the kids, go over there, do this, our kitchen table is the hub of art, creativity, discussions, vision between me and my wife, like things to do with business. It's the hub of everything in our household. Literally everything happens around the kitchen table. So 2 questions. What's on your kitchen table?
What's on my kitchen table? Well, at the moment, nothing is because my mother-in-law is coming into town and everything. This morning, my wife said, could you take all that crap up to your office? All the stuff that was on there. So now I'm looking at what's on my desk. I've got a mammogram next week. That's exciting. And some mail that was forwarded. There's some small oranges. Nice. It's exciting. I like vitamin C. But usually what's there, usually a cookbook that's open, sort of hunting through it. I'm not good. I have pretty severe ADHD, which anyone still listening will have noticed by now. But I'm not good at, I'm a great cook.
Okay.
I'm not good at following a recipe, but I like to flip through cookbooks to get inspired. And I can sort of look at it, go, okay, I got the gist. I've got the gist of this. Let me do it. And then later on, look at the cookbook to see what important step I missed.
All I can see now is that episode
span
from Friends when Rachel kind of follows a recipe that's half dessert, half like a beef dish, and so it's all the layers are different. Have you seen that episode? I mean, do you know that episode? I mean,
I haven't actually. It's one of those shows where I've seen a bunch of episodes, but I haven't gone all the way through it the way I have with other series because that was the period in my life when I was working 15 hours a day as a production assistant and a writer's assistant, three sound stages away from Friends.
Right, so there's an episode where Rachel follows this recipe, except it was stuck together. So half of it's a pudding and half of it's a meat dish. So she comes up with this dish that's half pudding and half meat. And you talking that remind me of that. And there's that moment where Joe's going, what's not to like? Custard, yeah, cream, yeah, beef, good. It's really, so it just kind of remind. Is that what happens with you when you make these recipes?
I do. I try not to have it be quite that strange. I've reached a point where, for the most part, it's pretty good. Fortunately, I don't have a huge sweet tooth, so that helps eliminate. less strange, sweet things going in. Yeah, exactly. I can edit. But if there's a great cookbook, well, she's a great food writer called Samin Nosrat, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, but she's got a couple of series on Netflix, but one is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, and she has a new book out that's about eating with friends, but sort of recipes that you can do for just family dinners, bigger dinners. And that was the last thing on the kitchen table that I was being inspired by, but not able to fully follow.
Dinner around Beth, whoever's watching this, there's an open invite. No, I'm kidding. And so what's kind of, as I'm talking about, because, a lot of my sort of vision strategy stuff with my wife happen around the kitchen table. What's your kind of idea worth spreading right now? We started to tap on it, I feel, before the kitchen table, like connection being so important. What's your kind of like, if I was to give you a TED Talk tomorrow, what would be your idea worth spreading and you would discuss around the kitchen table?
But yeah, we have been circulating around it. One of the things that I talk about when I talk about humor is that, to me, humor is a love language. Humor is a way to say things that we couldn't or wouldn't say directly. It's a way to say things between the lines. And it is and it's a way to gently say things between the lines. And an example that I've been using is, I'll ask how many people, well, I'll ask you.
I am. I'm still here.
But have you ever, you're still here. Have you ever apologized to your partner by making her laugh or smile, but without actually saying the words, I'm sorry?
Probably. I can't think of a specific, but I'm generally quite funny anyway, so probably. No, I'm joking.
It's sort of, it's getting someone, it's changing the mood, right?
I joked about being funny, and anyway, yes, carry on.
Well, yes, it works. It works. Look at it. Look at us in action. But it's a way to say things between the lines. And I think the concept of humor as a love language works for a few applications, because one of the things I'm always asked about in the Q&A is, well, what about when people do it wrong? What about when it offends? And that's when I go, same, and I have too. I mean, but there's also, one, I would say there's a reason a lot of laws revolve around intent. Sometimes things happen on purpose, and sometimes we just make mistakes. So I find that a very important distinction. But also, if you frame, especially in the workplace, because that's primarily how I talk about humor. I'm not talking about this is a comedy club, you're trying to be provocative, which is my taste, but it is a direction to go, and people have paid money to see things to see art, essentially. Yes. And they'll see what they see. But in the context of work, I think it's a very helpful tool to frame humor as a love language. So if you are to think about either if you're presenting or if you're trying to diffuse tension, what is it that you are saying intentionally and unintentionally between the lines? Be mindful of it. I mean, if it's just, I just need to get a laugh. Well, why are you trying to get a laugh?
Is it appropriate?
At the beginning of this meeting? Are you trying to do it because you're trying?
Right.
Well, it's why and then how. Because I think one informs the other. If you're trying to diffuse tension because something awkward has happened, I mean, that someone's been fired or there's been a lot of turmoil or a job didn't happen or something, then your intention is you need to diffuse humor, and there are ways you can do it that are, well, maybe you're just acknowledging the elephant in the room, saying that was not our best quarter. Maybe it's a little bit of understatement, but think about the information that you are transmitting between the lines, rather than just going in and saying, I've got this joke I just heard on a podcast, or here's a pun. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but they're tools. Is this the right tool for the job that you're doing? And that seems to make sense to people. And again, I'm a woman, I'm gay, and the reason I get these questions of, yeah, but everyone, well, sometimes they're not even questions. Sometimes it's just people, statements where people raise their hands and go, everyone's offended by everything these days. I can't say anything. It's like, well, look, one, there's a reason people are offended because they're just tired of it. But two, if someone says to you, one, I think it's up to those of us, well, it's something to keep in mind. It's not up to us, but I have been the only woman in a room full of guys for most of my career, and I've heard all kinds of things. People say things to me that are, run the risk of offending me. I would say there are ways to, but I always try to think about intent. Is this person saying it intentionally to provoke me, or are they saying it because they think it's funny and they just don't have their own experience to understand how this is landing with me? So I also think it's a useful tool for those of us on the receiving end. A useful tool for us to have is the ability to diffuse that tension. Humor is also a good way to do that. Someone says something dumb to me, I will often say, oh, Dad, with a smile on my face. But I'll say, Dad, I don't think we say that anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if they say, exactly. Or just say, oh,
right,
none taken. After they say it. And it takes a second, but usually other people in the room will get it. And suddenly this person realizes that they have inadvertently said something that what they've said between the lines was not what they intended to say. Well, and not what they intended. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they'll go, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I think it's helpful to have those conversations from
No, and
both
I agree. I never remind me as I hear you talk. I remember a time when I worked in corporate and I was using another language as a joke and swearing in another language, which a lot of people in the room knew. And so most people found it funny, except for a few. And then suddenly it was like, you're being very racist. It's like, what? I was just being funny. And they're like, no, you using those terms is highly offensive, actually. So the fact people laugh is one thing. So then I learned the term, it's not how it's intended, it's how it's received. And that really changed a lot of how I would say things, how I would position things. And I think that's quite an important part. On that note, I want to ask you, how many people use humor to deflect? As in, I was only joking. I didn't, I was only kidding with you. Don't be offended. I know you go back to intent, but sometimes people intend to say something and realize you're offended. Go, I was only joking. What's your kind of take on that response? If there's anything to add to that.
Well, I would say, and sometimes I describe this in talks as, in comedy we do have to do something called vetting the heckler, and that's where if you hear someone say something, before you go at them with both barrels, you have to repeat the heckle. Or it's often helpful to repeat the heckle because sometimes you didn't hear what you thought you heard. Sometimes someone just didn't get the right kind of chicken strips from the waitress. They thought they were getting buffalo. They got, exactly. Sometimes you just hear something and it's got a K sound and what? And so then it's just a misunderstanding. You can clear it up right there. So I think of this in terms of vetting the heckle, making sure you heard what you heard. So I would say if you are someone who has, that's one part of it. If you are someone who said something, has heard something, you've raised the point then as, I find that offensive, and the person says, I was only joking. I personally would like to hear not I was only joking was, I'm so sorry. That was not my intent. I was only joking. Just own it. Why go to anger right away? If that person says, don't get mad, I was only joking. Well, also, don't get mad. Don't get angry. When someone tells you not to get angry, how does that work with your partner? How does try that at home? See what response you get. Calm down, honey. Yeah, try that. Well, that becomes provocative on its own. So what annoys me is when someone just doubles down on it's humor. Get over it. No, don't tell me how to feel. That's gaslighting. Or if you just say it's not offensive, it's a joke. Well, my case, one, no, thank you. I'm a trained professional. I understand the difference. You're just bad at it. The best case scenario is you're just not very good at it. But it's gaslighting. If you're telling me that I didn't hear what I think I heard, that's gaslighting. And whether you agree with it or not, it ain't going to move us forward. And often in the context of work, these are two people who have to work together. This is not, I'm going to go to the box office and ask for my money back. This is someone, exactly. This is, even in that, you have to work with this person. So it's in the interest of both parties to acknowledge both sides, to have the conversation and to acknowledge it. I think there are people who would rather just be intentionally provocative, and, some people are jerks, but I think giving the benefit of the doubt and having the conversation and trying to make that person understand how you feel, even if they don't agree, is important. I think it's always important just to talk about it, because otherwise we just think we write off that person.
So if we don't talk about it, then we start to, in our mind, go, well, they meant this, they meant that, they said, that's why they said it, which none of that could be true. I did go and apologize to that group, by the way, and I never did again. So, and actually when I apologized, people were like, oh, no, training's going to be really boring if you're not going to use it. I was like, no, that's my whole essence isn't about using foreign swearing words, right? So I think, like you say, own up to it.
That's your keynote on swearing in as many languages as you can. Yeah, I love that.
So I think, well, it was a customer service workshop, ironically. So there we go in that respect. So no, I think it's important to own up, and also, I think you and I do a lot of work in this space, and we I think would like to believe we have some emotional intelligence and ability to read it, but you probably have a much greater ability to read an audience than I do. And I think it's important to develop that skill, read the room, and especially if you're going to use humor. And I think you're that should be a technique. Humor is a love language. I think you should definitely go forwards. If anyone's watching this, has run TEDx or TEDx or TED, you should get in touch with Beth, because I think it'll be an incredible TEDx to watch and for you to deliver. Really great stuff around the table. Now we're going to move away from the round table. A few more questions to go, and I'll let you go on with your day making oranges and crazy recipes. I just wonder, on that premise, because we're going this quite naturally, what should we talk about in this podcast that isn't being discussed enough? Or what's a topic you feel we need to highlight that deserves some eyeballs and ear time?
Well, I would say that, have we talked about, well, there's two things. Yep. One is that truth is funny, but I think the bigger part of that would be, and it was right there. See, that's my problem. The ADD is I'll take a step back to do something, and then what's in front of me goes away. It'll come back. I would say, I know what it is. Humor isn't about making people laugh.
I'm not going to edit this. This is raw. We go raw, baby.
Oh, well, then I'm still, then I'm going to still inflict it on you again. But yes. The word humor, especially in the context of work, makes people nervous because it feels like a very subjective thing. And so rather than at work or anywhere else, the idea of humor, I would prefer that people replace the word humor with humanity, because that's the core of what I talk about. And humor is about, it's not trying to get a cheap laugh. It's about finding common ground quickly. It's about relatability and vulnerability and growing that know, like, and trust factor for whatever purpose you want to use it for. But humor is humanity. I'm not out here to create more comedians. I don't need the competition, to be honest with you. But what's really behind the best humor, and what makes people feel the kind of emotion that builds trust and persuades them to take action, whatever action that is, right? It's listening to you, it's buying from you, it's going on a date with you. It's humanity. It's being a person. And that, watch any stand-up special. That's what it is. That's what comedians are really good at. And that brings us into truth is funny. And that's comedy, right? Life is absurd. People are bonkers. Truth is funny. all we do as comedians is observe and report truth, and it makes people laugh and smile. But it doesn't always have to be about wordplay. It's being honest. And the effects of it, like making people feel that way, making people smile, making people laugh, or just making people understand that you are also human and vulnerable and flawed.
Who are these humans you are talking about?
That's relatable.
Of course.
One, not you, of course. But that's the kind of thing that creates genuine connection. It's an incredibly useful tool, and it's my sincere wish that we all understand it a little better so that we can all apply it a little more effectively. Because, good Lord, the world needs it, and right now people are just taking sides, especially in my country.
Across the world, I think,
and without getting political,
there's definitely
across the world
thing going on across the globe.
Yeah, because because that's also a useful tool for people if they want to control. But I think seeing the ability to see humanity, to both share and see humanity in other people is what has the power to save us, or the past has shown that is what has the power to save us, or to keep things from completely going,
crazy.
I think the technical term is batshit. Crazy, yes. I didn't want to say crazy. I didn't know if I was allowed to say crazy on the podcast.
We can use that word. So you're saying humor plus humanity equals unity. Yeah. Is that? Oh, is that?
Hold on. Let me write that down.
It's a great unifier.
It is. It's common ground. It's finding common ground quickly. When I talk about a comedian getting on stage and getting everyone's attention and getting people to buy in those first seconds, that's what we're doing when a speaker goes on stage to do it. But when a leader, I mean, how do you build a team in sports, at work, in anything? It's how do you get everyone on the same page? How do you make people want to how do you create
Humanity
unity?
And humor, apparently, is the way forward. I love that. That's also a TEDx in itself.
Yes.
I think where you talked about humor is humanity. Again, another great idea we're spreading. Another idea to discuss around the kitchen table. I think it's really fantastic what you shared here. And as we wrap this episode up, besides advising, all your sort of where to find you will be in the notes as well. And besides, of course, recommending people into the Speaker Awards. What's your kind of favorite story that you like to tell or finish a talk on? I'd love to hear one of your kind of stories. Imagine it is Wembley. It's Thursday.
Well, first of all, you need the so this is when I've been brought out for the third encore.
It sounds like, I don't know, that sounded like someone finishing a long run. I don't know if that sounded like Cheers. But yes. Yeah, or a hairball.
Like a cat with a hairball. Yeah.
But let's pretend. Third encore. Go for it.
Well, a story that I like to end on is, and an idea that I like to end on is, I've been doing this 30 years, and I am constantly amazed by the ability of the humor has to bring people together and to create connection, even in some extreme circumstances. And how quickly it can do it. And the story that I often use to describe it is I did a stand-up tour of Iraq. Then I fired my agent. In 2008, I did a stand-up tour of Iraq, and it was incredible. It was two guys and me, and we did about 4 or 5 shows a day. We got to all of them on Black Hawk helicopter. We went to combat outposts and forward operating bases. And if you think you speak in front of tough audiences, try 19-year-old Marines. And if it was, did I mention it was August when I did it. So if you haven't been to Iraq in August, yeah, exactly. It hit 100, not 100, it hit 50 degrees Celsius while we were there, which is about 126 Fahrenheit. hot. There I am, show after show, middle-aged lesbian in front of 19-year-old Marines, and I had to make them laugh. I mean, talk about creating connection. And I used and all of the things that we've just talked about. I used everything we just talked about, the truth and humanity. And my opening line that I found for all those shows that worked every time was simply, the big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. You get me. And it worked. It worked every time because it was true. And in the time it took me, I mean, talk about a tense situation, but in the time it took me to say that line, the big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, you get me. By the way, if anyone doesn't know who they are, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, imagine the Spice Girls. Then, not now, but imagine the Spice Girls sort of in bikinis with pom-poms jumping up and down.
Like
that's who they are. A lot of them. They stand on the sidelines when the Dallas Cowboys, an American football team, plays. A lot of jumping, a lot of, not exactly me. But that they actually do. They do military tours. This is what 19-year-old guys like. So it got a big laugh. And in the time it took me to say that, big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, you get me, it's what, 2 seconds, 3 seconds? I made them feel emotion, which built trust, which persuaded them to take the action of not shooting me.
Well, I'd hope not.
So that I could enter the Speaker Awards and end up on this podcast someday.
2008 for not shooting Beth and allowing her to proceed and have a great career and win one of the awards at the Speaker Awards. Fantastic. I'm so grateful for them right now. Not the fact that you're alive and you've had a prosperous life, just the fact you could enter the awards. That's the point of... I'm going down. No, I'm kidding. Beth, thank you so much for being here. That's all it's about.
I know that's what it's about.
I know you talk about having a life and stuff. When you were saying that, I was like, well, I don't have much of a life. This is literally all I do. But that's not true. I do have kids, and they give me another life. A very busy one, a very, productive and creative one. And they've definitely allowed me to tap into parts of myself as a father and as a man that I don't think I would had I not had these two beautiful, amazing souls. Beth, thank you so much for being on The Front Row, the podcast, and for being so open and so human and so real with your journey. Of course, the how to contact you will be in the notes. If anyone's watching this that wants to put her on stage to do a TED Talk all around humor is humanity, I think that'll be a great, great TED to watch. Any final last words before we end this podcast?
No, I would say if you, well, I said no, and then I started to give you some. I would say when it comes to the Speaker Awards, go, show up, do it for yourself. It's a great exercise to look at how you present yourself as a speaker and to see where you are at
amazing.
This
Thank you again.
moment.
And for everybody out there, watch out for the winner series. Watch out for the podcast. There's lots more to come. We've got past winners. We obviously don't have future winners because we don't do that. But we're going to do a whole interview and we're going to start going wider once we finish the winner series. Tune in for the next Front Row, the podcast. See you soon, people. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Front Row Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. It's through your feedback that we grow. We hope you've taken lots of notes, benefited from the wisdom, and are now going to turn everything into action. Remember to keep an eye out for our next episode of the Front Row Podcast. And remember to like, subscribe, and of course leave us a 5-star review. We look forward to connecting with you and hearing the progress of your journey in the professional speaking world. Tune in next time for the Front Row Podcast.